Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and tonight I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Good man, good. You sound a little scratchy tonight.
Oh, sorry, there's been a lot going on. Uh, you know,
It's that time of year. It's time of year,
it,
man.
it's that time of the year. It's rainy, cold, and nasty, and it's just is like, ugh. I'd rather be like, just snuggle up in bed watching a movie or something. I mean, it's always great to come and hang with you,
You're not supposed
fans,
to
and that
tell.
kind of stuff.
You're not supposed to tell the internet people that, man. We're here to talk. He would much rather be talking to you guys than
I'm not
snuggling
saying
up
I
watching a movie.
I'm not saying I would rather. I would say I would like to, but it's always fun to come and do this thing and what have you.
So tonight's topic is experts, and yes, it is slightly inspired by the newest on our third which is for the one D&D playtest. Now, I don't know that we will veer into that direction and talk about that per se. It's always a possibility. But before we jump in and get started, I just want to thank our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice is the dice company that we prefer. Right now, they have a Kickstarter going on for their Series Two. What is it? The Giants.
The giant dice of legends, I believe.
Yes. There's a link in the description with a promo and also a promo code for Easy Roller Dice to get a whopping 25% off your first order. So you can check that out. And if I don't have their Kickstarter in the description, I'm going to put it there momentarily. So
Yeah, I've thought I had it here. Darn it, I moved it.
you
Uh,
lost them again.
I didn't lose them. I know exactly where they are, but
If
I
you
was
like big dice,
48 millimeter dice. With that, there's the Cosmic Giant, the Mist Giant, the Shoal Giant, the Blood Etin, Valley Giant, the Lura Giant, and the Dune Giant. All
they all look fantastic. Just go over there and check it out.
and
With that, let's jump into tonight and talk about experts. What do you think about when you think about experts, my man?
So when you hear the word expert, we're talking about someone like outside of D&D, outside of gaming in general, somebody who is more than just proficient at their craft. This is someone that you can rely on to get the job done as long as it is within their field. And I feel like when you roll that back into the mechanical aspect, the classes that fall into the expert absolutely are in that description. They're going to get the job done because they're equipped with the skills to be able to back up that claim.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, so in other contexts too, not just like the playtest. Experts used to be very necessary in the game because you couldn't advance in level without finding an expert to train you in order to gain a level. You used to have to wait.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be a process of finding somebody to, test you or spend time with, just to be like, you know, I've got the XP. Now I need to spend the time with somebody to do it. And I mean, we haven't played that style in a very long time, but
I don't think we ever really followed those rules, but I know other people did.
sure.
It seems also I will say in the old days when we used to play, it was it took us a while to kind of like adapt our style of play because we'd be like, all right, so we've been playing this campaign for a while. But in game time, like not it's like it's like a season of 24, right? Because like not that much time is passing in the game, but tons of time is passing in the real world.
Hmm.
And we're like all of a sudden the characters are like level 10. And but in the game time only like 3 months has gone by.
Right.
So that's probably one of the reasons why we did not really do that.
Yeah, it can be absolutely crazy when you begin to look at, how much time has passed in a game. And if you do like a dungeon crawl and you play for 3 or 4 hours, it's entirely possible that it could take you numerous upon numerous game sessions just to get out of the dungeon. We kind of made a joke long ago with the Dawnbringers that oh, we can only go through one door per session. because that's all it seemed would happen. We played for 3.5 hours back then, and we would get through one door, and if like somehow we went through multiple, it was like, my God, what is going on? Like that's almost how Forge of Fury went, and it was insane. And other times we've played where we ran like 3 or 4 sessions, maybe 5, in between long rests, and we were haggard. It was like, please, please just let us get to a spot to rest. And it's not like we were just goofing off or whatnot. We were going up against hard fights, and that, not only do we have to really be rationing our abilities and powers, but like we have to be making smart decisions as players, because like when you're running out of abilities and you're facing off against credible threats, it's like, well, the ramifications if you go into a fight not able to handle what that is.
Jake is like, I got a bunch of experts here. This should be fine. They don't need no stinking long rest.
Well, it is entirely, possible that was some rationale, because I mean, it's not like, any of us are novices at this game, and we've been playing together for a long time, and individually we've got, quite a long repertoire to deal with.
So one of the cool things about the playtest is the way they are now breaking things up. And the inspiration for tonight's topic, experts, is bard, ranger, rogue, but the other groups are mages, priests, and warriors. I'm pretty sure that's straight out of second edition.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot less options and there's different categories in second edition, but it's kind of cool to see that come back.
Doug and I were kind of talking about this a little bit when we were discussing classes last week, and looking at the aspect of, the four principal archetypes for fantasy RPGs, and like how some other games have really built upon that concept, specifically like Shadow of the Demon Lord
Yeah.
can build from there. But having that kind of brought back for D&D 1 is definitely interesting, and I wonder whether they're taking, nods from not only the previous editions of D&D, but seeing how it's been incorporated with things like Shadow of the Demon.
I mean, we've always kind of grouped them together anyway, but we didn't call them, their names, right? Since you needed someone who was sneaky, you needed the healer, you needed the meat shield, and
He
you
needed a smart
needed,
guy.
yeah, you needed the caster, the smart guy, the blast things. Although back then you had to go a while before they could actually start blasting things. But when they did, it was glorious.
Yeah, you mean they're one magic missile a day?
Yeah, yeah, it was far less impressive. Yeah. Although,
Yeah.
some of those other spells were more effective than, than the later editions. I think 5e has found like a nice balance.
I would agree with
Retro
that.
What's that?
I would agree with that.
Ret Rogue 48. Hello, I'm trying to get into D&D. Where do I start? I mean, there's tons of tutorials, videos online, but honestly, I would say like go to your local gaming store and see if they're running organized play. Like, it's usually pretty easy to just jump in there and maybe they can give you a pre-gen character and get you started and kind of show you the ropes.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I would say, it's an expert opinion there, Dave. Uh,
Yeah.
while there are some people who are not fond of organized play, give you a solid D&D experience by somebody who knows what they're doing, and they're going to be following the rules, which is always a good foundation to build off of, because there's lots of people who can steer you wrong when you start getting into house rules and that kind of stuff. So being able to follow the core rules first is definitely key.
Yeah, and also too, I feel like they're probably used to getting new players, right? Especially if you're going to a gaming store. If you have a local convention, that's another place where you can kind of check it out. Tons of resources online. There is so many places where you can jump into games with all the VTTs like Fantasy Grounds, Shard, Roll 20, Demiplane, Start Playing. Like, I mean, there are so many options now. Actually, I think one of the toughest things you might find now is there's just like too many options.
Yeah, too many options can be a little bit scary. But I mean, if you're looking for tutorials, there's plenty of YouTube channels of, looking to get into the different classes or what have you. Doug's got it right. If you find yourself a starter set, you can definitely kind of build off of that with some of the rules. And whether you're looking to become a dungeon master or just kind of learn under somebody else's tutelage before you're willing to, pick up the mantle and do it yourself, there's definitely lots of options that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are some ways that you've used experts in your games?
So, as a DM, I look to the experts as players of, well, what skill sets do they have that I can rely on or test through the different adventures. I know you and I both enjoy doing skill challenges at our tables, and to have information or have things ready to test those abilities make the game a lot more interesting and give those players justification in choosing those abilities. If you just take a adventure off the shelf and people come to the table with some weird wonky stuff, that adventure might not test the abilities that those characters come to the table with. Whereas if you know what your players have, you've got the ability to kind of cultivate your material so that you test the things that you know they're supposed to be good at, and then occasionally challenge them with the things that they don't.
See, I was thinking about a little different direction,
Okay.
and I think about the first 5e game you ran,
Okay.
and there's two people that come to mind. One is Everwind, and he's the guy that made the good bread, and it was like right on the way. The bakery was right on the way to the to the watch, right, where they would keep the
Uh-huh.
prisoners. So anytime we'd have to interrogate someone, we'd stop by Everwinds and get the good bread first because you got to fuel up. And also, I think we used to use it as part of our interrogation so they could smell us eating the good bread, but they couldn't get any unless the
Evan
barbarians.
Wind, but yeah, he was definitely a fun thing that I didn't really create him. I was created by the party, and I just kind of, the more you used him, the more, all right, this became a staple of the game. And then, of course, at some point in time, things had to change, and he wasn't around. So, like, it was like, oh no, what do you do when the staple of the game is missing?
Also, his bakery burned down at least once.
Indeed.
Also, I think of another NPC that you introduced into the game, Analasalar, which was the head of the Elven Library. Was it just a library or was it Elven Library?
Elven, yeah, Elven Library.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a bunch of snooty elves, but Analasalar was the head librarian, I think. Um, and my character kind of had this frenemy relationship with the clerk. It
Well,
was kind of like the gatekeeper to try and go and meet with Analasalar and get the
to be
information from the library.
to be fair, the gatekeeper always stayed at frenemy, where Analasalar was
Mm.
along the same lines, but because the clerk never really interacted with you on repetition to see your intellect and your thought processes, chance to build the camaraderie that you and Analasalar did. So it allowed for a scenario of friendship that you guys did quite a lot with. So
Yeah, and we were able to. He was able to help us solve problems and facilitate adventures, and like that's a good place to introduce experts into your games in different areas where your players aren't the experts, right?
Right.
So now they have this NPC that they need to interact with to help them solve their problem. They shouldn't really solve it for them, but they should be able to point them in the
Offer
right direction,
offer
or
guidance.
yeah, offer guidance or barter, right? To because if they get something out of it, I always want it to lead to more adventure, essentially.
Right.
You don't want it to
So
be
one
like, oh, you solved the problem.
so 1 second. Pigpug 214. We're talking about experts tonight. It's loosely inspired by, the new UA of 1D&D. We're discussing experts as NPCs at the moment, and how we've used them, in our games to kind of help guide the adventurers along the path without just spoon feeding information or lore dumping on somebody.
Yeah, and another thing that I've seen happen over the course of campaigns, and this was a bigger thing in earlier editions, is as the characters gain more popularity or notoriety, become more famous, right? They then become kind of the experts that are sought after. And in second edition, when characters got to certain levels, they would get followers, especially clerics and fighters. Um, and then like I believe wizards would get they would get apprentices, and I think a barbarian didn't necessarily get followers, but they could summon a horde at some point. So it was like, followers for a while.
So, Ret Rogue 48 wants to know, what is the most ridiculous D&D character you can think of?
Man, we've probably played the character or seen them at our table at this point because there has been so many. Didn't one of the players in our games have a character that fought with yo-yos?
I mean the
Or am
half
I just thinking of Cleric
discs.
Quintet?
I mean, there's the halfling sling disc that was in the cleric quintet, but I'm pretty sure that at some point in time someone was inspired by that and wanted to use those in a game.
I mean, at this point, we've got to be at like hundreds of characters that we've been exposed to, right?
I mean, between playing, watching, and running for absolutely hundreds of characters. I mean, you're closing in on 40 years of doing this hobby. I mean, I'm closing in on 35 of RPGs, in not too far distant future. And then like we've gamed with so many groups. I know one of us was literally like ran a game for every player was on a different continent. So like we've had some craziness. Now,
Yeah.
individual character, I'm totally gonna jump ship off of Nerdarchy and go towards our friend Ben of Puffin Forest and his absurd character, you know,
Uh,
in the ridiculous category because he had a level in everything. So
yeah, but is it a character that was actually ever played, or was it just
I'm pretty sure the story of a character that was played, not just
a theory
for a
craft?
video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, there's definitely plenty of things that can be ridiculous, and it depends upon what direction you want to go. I mean, I've taken characters into a variety of different alternate planes of existence, some of which that are silly and insane and what have you. So
It also depends how you want to define
ridiculous.
ridiculous, right? Like, I've played Jogo, which is like the build wasn't ridiculous.
Hmm.
He was literally just a barbarian, a Goliath barbarian with the urchin background. But the way I played him was absolutely ridiculous because he dumped intelligence, and I probably played him at another modifier lower or two lower than where he was. Like that was a stream game. I would wear a pot on my head when we played that game because something was stealing brains. He was pretty sure it was goblin ghosts. He was very concerned about having his brain stolen. So, so he would wear the pot on his head in order to protect his brain. Um, I asked the artist for the character portrait to draw my likeness as a half ogre because
Right.
he was a Goliath by race, but I reflavored him as being a half ogre, and I believe it was I believe Kim Van Doon had done that one, and for whatever reason she decided to draw the glasses, and she's like, I don't know, I just went with it and I just loved it, but I'll take them off if you want. And I was like, no, leave them. And the DM said we can have a magic item, so like I gave him like Eyes of the Eagle, and but he would wear the glasses because he thought they made him smarter, because he thought he looked smarter when they were on.
So, approaching it from a different angle of ridiculous, uh, we've got the characters for your game from Shattered Realm that just had a ridiculous amount of treasure. That was the most absurd amount of magic that any game I've ever been in, and it was literally like everyone's character sheet was overloaded with stuff, and then there was like 4 or 5 pages like of handwritten notes, treasure that was in the party list. So like that was utterly crazy. And then in addition to that, we ran a game here on the channel that somebody wanted to run for us, whether we ran a 40th level game where it was supposed to be 4 players, but one person bailed out. So it was 3 40th level characters. You had taken 2 classes up to level 20 within 5e to go fight 3 Tarrasques. So that was absolutely an insane encounter.
Oh yeah, yeah. So although we weren't 40th level, we were only 20th level. I did play in Planet of the Tarrasque, and it opens up with us fighting like 3 Tarrasques. Um, but also Tarrasques are a bit underwhelming in 5e. Yeah, also, there was the game in 3rd edition we ran, which was a Gestalt game. Which, if you're not familiar, Gestalt means you're playing 2 character classes at the same time, but it's not a multi-class. You level one time, and you just level in the same 2 classes. And we also, I think it was a Gestalt game, and it was also you had 3 ECLs to play with,
Yeah,
which stood for
equivalent
equivalent,
character level.
yeah, equivalent character level. And all the monster races had ECLs basically. So if you wanted to play like a werewolf or a centaur or a minotaur or something else, it technically had monster levels for being more powerful. And it was during a time when like our group just as a collectively did not have a lot of time. So it was like this game was not going to be serious, and it was going to be more dungeon crawl style and not a whole lot of plot and story going on. And it was
But it
just
was
like,
also it was also incredibly brutal. So we went through a number of characters through that game. And it was like, oh, that one died, just pull out the next thing.
yeah.
Which, would then be like, all right, well, we need this or we want this. And
I don't even remember anything about the game other than the parameters I had laid out and been
I
like, do your
I
worst, guys.
I remember a lot of the different characters, and I know I had somebody who was
I
like,
just know Mark would have played a werebear at some point, maybe every point.
that's because Mark really likes his lycanthropes and leans heavily towards the werebear angle of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Sleepy Gaunt wants to know about what's our thought on a
Oh no, this one is specifically for you. Me and Doug have fielded this one in a different chat.
so a Thrycreen blacksmith would be kind of cool. I mean, you still have to deal with the rules of using multiple weapons, so you're not going to be swinging with all 4 hands unless you are enough levels of fighter to get 3 attacks and then use one offhand attack. That's how I would view that aspect. But the concept of a Thrycreen blacksmith would be kind of cool. But I mean, they are natural weapon crafters. You look like you're frozen for a second there, Dave.
No, it's Mahal just dumped a build into the chat. I'm trying to follow it. Starting rogue, taking a level in fighter for fighter style, ranger for foe, monk +10 movement, wizard, ritual, shield, mage armor, warlock, hex armor of Agatha. It's not strong, but it's doable. Yeah, but you need a bunch of levels. So, and
Yeah,
you're also never going to get a feat or a stat adjustment.
and you really don't need mage armor if you're a monk unless you've got crappy dex and wisdom.
Yeah, because they won't stack.
Right. Um, and you're not going to get a whole crap ton of
So let's see. You need dex. You need wisdom.
You need intelligence.
You need intelligence. You need charisma. So you got to have at least 4 13s. So that means your stats aren't going to be great.
And it sounds like we're looking for a martial character, so you'd probably want Constitution as well.
Yeah, and then on top of all that, if you want to wear, well, I guess you're not. If you're going monk, you don't have to worry about heavy armor because they're going to say because on top of that, you would then have armor requirements for strength. But sure, it's anything is doable. It's just a matter of what ultimately what are you trying to accomplish? Because like if you're trying to get movement, like you can get 10 foot of movement by taking a feat and get some other benefits as well. No, it would not. You have to pick how you make your armor. We early on, Ted was very heartbroken because he's like draconic sorcerer, mage armor, and monk.
No, I was
35 armor class to start.
I was looking at draconic sorcerer.
Yeah.
Looking at barbarian, monk. What else lets you calculate an armor class?
Draconic sorcerer, barbarian, monk, mage armor.
Yeah, I don't think mage armor was part of it. It might have been just those three of like, all right, I could come in and I could have like a 21 armor class at 3rd level, just with stats. I was looking at, utter craziness, and it's like, well, it doesn't really work that way.
But I will tell you something that does stack with all of that. Bracers of defense, they just give you a +3 to armor or a +2 to armor class.
Yep.
As long as you're not wearing armor or using a shield.
So, I mean, you can be a monk and use the mage armor spell, but you wouldn't be using your wisdom modifier and calculating armor class.
Yeah, you'd have to pick and choose which one you wanted to do. So I would probably drop the monk from that equation unless there's a specific thing you want to do. I just feel like there are better ways to get your movement up. Like you could take the mobile feat, or you could cast Expeditious Retreat. So there's like other things, and that lasts a while, and I don't think it's concentration. So
yeah. All right, so it's 8:28. Before we kind of get back to talking about experts, I'm going to go into my typical admin scenario. It happens to be the first Monday of the month, therefore there's always going to be cool things to talk about. If you're not familiar, we do a monthly giveaway. We do a monthly fan game. So the monthly giveaway winner is Lennon Bass. I've already sent the email, just waiting on the return to get the address to you. So what we're going to be sending out this month is a nice little haul of the special edition covers. We've got Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. We've got Strixhaven, the Curriculum of Chaos, Journey Through the Radiant Citadel, as well as The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. So all of this is in one little fine bundle to ship out to Lennon. And as soon as I get a response, I can get that boxed up and mailed out. This month is the fan game with Doug. And the way we do that, usually we send out an email. The first five people to respond usually are able to get in. The players selected, we've got Brandon, Andrew Ferguson. I'm going to guess on the name EJ Hibbs because they didn't actually put a name in. We've got Ryu Ribeiro, Zachary Kennedy, Michael Glander, Nick F., Chris Bright, Pat, and Emily Met. So Doug has got that list. They're gonna, get that emailed out to all those people and be able to have that situation dealt with and figure that all out. Adding to the giveaway pile, we have a copy of the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, sealed, just come to us from Wizards. So I'm adding that to the shelf over here, and that'll get into one
There's
of the.
actually two of them we're adding to the giveaway.
I have one here.
Yeah.
There's an imaginary one going over there as well. The sit box where
But
Dave.
very soon it won't be imaginary; it will be real.
Yeah. So that's that. Admin stuff covered, pretty quickly. Yeah.
Cool. We got a question from Stephen Whitehead.
Would you allow a variant feral tiefling that removes the wing and flight speed and replaces it with a prehensile tail and a climbing speed? Basically looking to build Nightcrawler. I don't know what you're looking to do with the prehensile tail. I would totally allow the removal of flight speed and to give it climbing speed.
I would use the plasmoid appendage thing.
Okay.
I would just lift those rules. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but they're written. They're written in a way so that you can't really abuse it. So,
Sure.
But it's still kind of cool. So I would go with that combined with the climb speed. Yeah, absolutely. That's to me that's easy.
Yeah, I would go with that.
I mean, the way 5e is now, anyway. Even if you had a prehensile tail, like it's not like you could, get extra attacks out of it or anything useful, because right now everything relies off your bonus action, although that looks like that might change a little bit for the better, which I actually like. But so there's not even that many ways to abuse it, other than being like, well, you can't, maybe you might say, well, you can't use this shield in your prehensile tail, but you would be able to use a shield in your offhand, and then maybe a dagger, or a light weapon in your tail, and then in your primary hand.
Yeah, that's always where it gets a little wonky of like, all right, well, could I fight with a great sword and a dagger? Is that allowable, or
Technically you can't, because of the way the two weapon fighting rules work or worded.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you go to even if you go with dual wielder, I'm not sure if it would even qualify.
Well, I just looking at the different questions that I've seen before, and it becomes a big headache as somebody who's trying to be like, well, how can I up my average damage on this little thing here and the little thing there? And I'm like, all right, it's cool if you've got a fun concept that you want to play, and your home GM, but like it if you're looking to do it for fun, great. If you're looking that you're trying to just do more average damage, I find that challenging to deal with.
Prepare to be challenged.
Well, I mean, that's always going to happen. I mean,
like as a GM, you're always like trying to figure out, are they just trying to do something cool, or are they just trying to get one over on me?
I mean, that's when you play with a lot of different people, and
you see them all.
You definitely have the aspect of people using their own expert skills against you. All right, well, how's that going to fly?
So, dual wielder is worded. You can use two weapon fighting, even when one-handed melee weapons are you're wielding aren't light. So, but it calls out one-handed melee weapons. So I would say you couldn't use like a great sword or a great axe, but you could use, like, if you had that, you could definitely use a longsword or a battle axe.
I mean, I've got a character who uses two warhammers. So, I mean, I'm familiar with that aspect of it. I just didn't know the specific wording to realize like how it works when you've got more than two hands.
Yeah, so I guess like it really hasn't come up until you started So we started getting into like the thigh cream, because now it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, this has definitely got some areas. I think the biggest thing is, well, now you can, like, with a character like that, you're able to use you're able to do two weapon fighting and use a shield. But
Mhm.
even with the fry queen, I think the way it's worded is you would still only be able to use light weapons, so you wouldn't be able to use, like the dual weapon fighting. So there's still like a mitigating factor.
Right.
So shape self from plasmoid as a bonus action, you can extrude a pseudopod that is up to 6 inches wide and 10 feet long, or reabsorb it into your body. As part of the same bonus action, you can use it, the pseudopod, to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, pick up or set down a tiny object. The pseudopod contains no sensory organs. Blah blah blah. So I would say, I would just lift that and be like, that's your prehensile tail. Maybe not everything you wanted, but you're also getting the movement
Right.
through climb. So, how do you think you would use an expert as a villain in your game?
So I mean, it almost happened. There was some possible teasers and uh, discussion about whether Analasalar was a villain. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that we run games where we don't always have the end set when we're running, and sometimes it is really rewarding to take the player's ideas and just be like, yeah, that sounds really cool. Let's let them be right. So
Yeah.
I literally seesawed on that for a while. So I think an expert that is already in communication with the party and literally be like, "Oh, I was the bad guy all along," you know, can be a lot of fun, and it gets to needle the players, like not the characters, might do the characters, but needle the players. Be like, "Oh my god, how did I not see this? What was this? What was that?" And it can be a lot of fun to really have someone that's been close with the party be the bad guy, and in some cases, even helping them along because they're working towards the same goal potentially.
So we actually do have an NPC that I don't know that I created it, but I think I did the write up years ago. Our necrobotanist.
I was
Uh,
I was gonna I was gonna go there when you started talking about that. I was like, yeah, we worked alongside him for a session or two, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'm making zombie children.
yes. Well, and that I think that key directly from actually a video we did. It's one of the rare instances I took something that we actually made as Nerdarchy and inserted into one of our games. And the concept for the character, who's a gnome and he's a botanist and he loves plants and flowers, and he would compete in the annual rose competition, and he would always win. And his kids accidentally destroyed his prize roses, so he freaks out, loses it, and murders them and his wife. And then sets up down this dark road of necromancy, trying uh, to recapture the lost spirits of his family and bring them back, which basically leads to him creating a bunch of zombies, plant zombies. And the thing that we came up with is he sends out ravens and crows to harvest the souls of newly dead children to bring them back and infuse them into his necromantic experiments. And he hasn't quite gotten it right yet, but he's still working on it. He
He's
still has
still
the
trying.
spirits of his wife and children tucked away until he perfects the process.
Yeah, he was pretty damn creepy. We were very happy that in the reality that we existed with him, happy to put him down.
Yeah, I've created a couple like NPCs like that fill that expert role that the players will come to and rely on for help. I think it was a Sprocket McGee was one of them that interacted with you guys and my first 5e game and also this the Scarlet Sisterhood, and he was kind of like an inventor. But I definitely channeled some Tinker Gnome energy from Dragonlance, where they
Oh
like
yeah.
invent a lot of things, but they don't always work quite right, and it can be kind of dangerous.
If I remember correctly, is every time that a purchase was made from him, you rolled a die to determine like how good or bad the item.
Yeah, if it was gonna work the way it was intended or not. Uh,
So,
and then I also had an alchemist that I didn't use. I don't think I used her with you guys, but I used it in the Scarlet Sisterhood a lot. And
mhm.
they and she was the first one to like. I think she turned the Scarlet Sisterhood onto the hags because she had been training. She had traded a bunch of her memories for alchemy secrets, and and that led them to go to the hags to try and solve a problem. And and that NPC like was another NPC that the characters would just always go back to.
Well, there was also the like the first real villain. Um, I just remember him like on the boat, and they encountered him again later in that game. Yeah, he definitely felt like he was a bit of an expert as well. Totally being super vague, and I apologize. Um, you remember like Moth something or other, Mothman, or
Are you talking about the big bad?
like the first big bad? But yeah,
Oh yeah. So his the motif that he had was a moth with the death's heads on the wings,
hmm
and that was it. What the heck was his name? I ran that campaign. Feels like so. Like I started that campaign like 5 years ago,
yeah. I mean,
and
it's been years, so gaming that we do is occasionally things slip, but I definitely remember like he was powerful. He had people. He
the
did
Monarch.
Monarch. That's it.
Yeah, he was a drug dealer, and he was refining the glands, basically the glands from troglodytes to create a drug called stank.
Oh, he was the one behind Stank.
Yes, yeah, he created stank.
Hmm. I thought Stank came late, but
No, no, no. Like, so stank was a drug that he created, and people would inject it to get high. The problem was that the withdrawal symptoms were he turned into a troglodyte, and that is why the Scarlet Sisterhood went to the hags. They were looking for an antidote to cure the people that got turned into troglodytes. That game was so much fun.
yeah, a bit insane.
So Sleepy Gaunt wants to know about the ultimate Holy Warrior build. Uh, but I've not found a way to effectively multi-class Paladin and Cleric. Surprisingly, they don't mesh all that well. Your ideas? Well,
Well,
that's because I feel like that's because like the Paladin is already a mix of Cleric and Fighter essentially.
right.
Um,
I would say the ultimate holy warrior is paladin, and take the
yeah.
flavor feel best fits what you're looking for.
Yeah, like what
Because
exactly you're trying to get out of it. Like Warlock can work really. I mean, Paladin can work really well with Warlock. So maybe if you went Celestial Warlock to get at, to further double down and access um those cleric spells or divine spells, but then you also get to factor in some sorcery points as well, and or no, not sorcery points, but you get to factor in getting your slots back on a short rest, so you can because the warlock paladin makes a really good Smitatron character.
yes,
Which I feel like we've seen a couple versions of that in our games over the years.
I would
Uh,
say so.
the one being the combining of Warlock Smite alongside the Paladin Smite for for Uber Smites.
Yes, Like, how much smite can you smite the smite? Because technically, you could cast a smite spell, and then on the hit use an Eldritch Smite and a Paladin Smite. So you're technically getting the weapon damage plus 3 smites. It,
Yeah, that
it
hurts a
can hurt
lot.
if you do that on a crit.
And we did do a holy warrior build. Apparently, that's what I'm suspecting. Doug is dropping in the chat. Uh, I don't I don't really remember that one, but I don't think was it a holy warrior or like the most holy character. But I only vaguely remember doing it because we've done a couple cleric builds. I know we did like the ultimate like combat medic style character or the healer character. We've done the inflict wounds character, which is basically built off of cleric as well. Although you could probably build that one off of celestial, the celestial sorcerer
Yeah,
origin. So there's some different routes to go with that.
it's about as on what specifically are you looking for, out of a build. He says, looking for a way to supercharge its holiness with cleric for purely thematic reasoning. If you're looking to do it from early on, an Asimar Forge Cleric Paladin, would allow you to be able to make either your armor or your weapon +1 item, um, until you find something that's there. Um, but eventually, like, there's not a whole lot that's there.
You don't
Uh,
get extra. You're not going to smack on a lot of extra holy for just choosing paladin or cleric, and especially in 5e, paladins really aren't quite this. Like they're not as holy as they used to be because it's more about their oaths and the particular thing that they're devoted to. But you could go. I mean, I feel like just adding acolyte to paladin goes a long way, and like you said, Azamar on top of it would work really well. And you could probably even just skip cleric, unless there's something specific you're looking for.
if you're looking for a holy warrior, you know, paladin is it. Like that's you're not going to get anything out of cleric unless you're willing to sacrifice the upper levels to to gain more spell slots. That's what you're going to get out of cleric. If you don't care about the spell slots, you feel like you've got enough with paladin, stick with paladin. It's far stronger. Paladin is crazy powerful. Yeah, it's a very resource driven class, but it's a good one.
It's like the strongest class in the game that's not a wizard. So wizard, sorcerer, they're going to be much stronger at the higher levels, just because they're just insanely powerful in comparison to martial characters. But I would say right behind them is paladin, because you can just do so much. You as a paladin, you already get access to healing, you get access to magic that you can do some things with, and they're also great warriors. So
And let's to be fair, they also get that charisma bump to their saving throws, so they're usually at being able to resist things much easier than anybody else.
yeah, they are good for sure. I'm curious to see what they do with paladin, in 1D&D.
Are they gonna nerf them?
I don't know. I mean, they didn't really, they did nerf. I was gonna say they didn't really nerf Rogue, but they kind of did. But I think like the thing that they're nerfing is an oversight that they didn't foresee, and that's the fact that there are certain ways for a rogue to get a sneak attack not on their turn in the round. They can only do it
Mm-hmm.
once, but they probably didn't think about it at all, how it interacted with other features.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, oh, wait a minute, when the party really plans, they can usually guarantee the rogue gets a second sneak attack. And normal rogue, that hurts. But if you can do it on the first round with an assassin,
Yeah,
it is very brutal.
and that goes into the expert at the table scenario where there's always going to be people who look at the rules in a different perspective than some of the people who play, to look for those kinds of things. And I don't have, a big problem with that. I like seeing what some of those is come up with, but if it's in the rules and they say go for it, well, go for it. I believe that, you know, playing tactically should be an aspect of the game. And if you can find a way to make that happen, then so be it.
I mean, Kurt in our games always builds a character that has like a trick,
Hmm.
of some sort or another, and they do it really well. Well, maybe Lucky didn't. Lucky was just straight up bard, right?
He was straight up bard, but I mean he had a handful of tricks, with his spell selection and the magic items that he was looking for.
Probably like the best one would be the first time he pulled out his animate object, and
Hmm.
he animates like I don't know what the number of small knives you can do, but it's a lot. And then Ted's just like F me, and it's like Ted's just like I just figured out how to deal with you, charming and casting suggestion on all of my enemies. And then you deal with that, and then he's like, oh, I guess I can't charm them. Fine, here, rain of daggers.
Literally like opened up his cloak
Hmm.
and unrolled this thing of daggers. And it's just like, bloop. I'm like, you gotta be freaking.
Yeah,
But I mean,
he's good at keeping the DMs on their toes.
and to be fair, like I like that. I like as a DM, I
Mm.
like pushed. I like being prodded because I do want to feel like I'm an expert at all of this. And that when somebody pulls out something I hadn't expected, I'm like, oh, do I have a counter for this?
Yeah,
Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't.
yeah. So, but I will say, when I think cleric and paladin, I think war cleric. And also, like, gaining an extra attack as a bonus action, kind of nifty. Also, gaining a +10 to hit, very nifty.
Yeah,
Because
if you go high enough.
I don't think it has to be that high.
Really?
Like 6 tops.
Yeah, that's what I say. That's 6 levels of paladin that you're sacrificing.
Yeah, but you're getting a lot from your cleric, and the one thing you're not sacrificing is
Spell slots.
spell slots. You're gonna have more spell slots to do stuff with. Um,
Likes the idea of the forge domain. Uh,
no, guided strike man is second level, +10,
wow.
and it's at 6th level that you can give it to somebody else,
Mm.
and then also at first level, equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum one, you can make the extra attack as a dude. So you only really need 2 levels of cleric. 6 if you want to be able to share it with others. And here's the thing: it gives you another use of channel divinity, and you're gonna get channel divinity from being a paladin. And these channel divinities are better than the ones you're probably going to get from being a paladin.
Yes.
so so yeah, I would say so. Yeah, so there 2 levels of war cleric and paladin. It depends though. That doesn't make you more holy, but it'll make you better at putting more holes in your foes.
It'll make your enemies more holy, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Sounds like your enemies might be a little cheesy.
Ugh. So so you ran for this weekend. I think it's worth mentioning. We got to get together with some of our internet buddies. Well, an
We
internet
did.
buddy that plays in your game, and people can have seen on the channel, Fraginator.
Yep.
And I got to meet Fraginator's son, Shrapnel,
Yep.
and Carlos from our. He's also in your game, but also it plays in one of our home games.
Yep.
We all
He's
got
in,
together, and Ted was nice enough to run Zoo Mafia, and I got to play him playing the game that I helped design. So that was
Help
cool.
design. You've written everything so far. But yeah, I've now run four. Uh, if I remember correctly, I've run 4 games of Zoo Mafia for a total of 15 different players. Uh,
Yeah.
far everybody is given us positive feedback and some constructive ways to help build the game out better, and I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like I'm becoming my own expert behind the screen with Zoo Mafia, and
Y-
with PAX Unplugged was it next month. We're looking to hopefully be able to run
December. It's the first
December.
weekend in
All right,
December.
all right. 2 months from now,
Yeah.
uh, we'll look to run some Zoo Mafia out there as well.
Yeah, and if you have not downloaded your free quick start rules, there is a link in the description to sign up for the newsletter. And that newsletter, we barely even use it, but what you will be able to get is access to the quick start rules right away. And also, like when we do other things with Zoo Mafia, you'll be able to get an email from us letting you know about them. And eventually, we're going to crowdfund the project. So if you want to know when that happens, and we're looking at some really cool ideas for like a deluxe version of the game that we're kind of having fun with kicking around. But also we've created a goon playbook and a
Driver.
driver playbook in addition to the 4 starter playbooks. And we kind of did them on the website, but then the actual downloadable PDF for them are over on Patreon. So we're putting them over there. We're gonna be doing some other cool things with Patreon. We've been playing with AI generated art. So we're gonna create see what kind of monsters the machine makes from our prompts, and then we'll do a video on it, and then we're going to take that art and put it in a PDF and make that monster or an item or an NPC, and we're going to put those over on Patreon along with virtual tabletop tokens so that people can use them if they're playing online. And then I think the next endeavor we're going to do is we're going to start creating subclasses and just individual subclasses, and we're going to put them over there as well, just as a small PDF that you can download on the Patreon. So we got some plans over there, and we could use some more support over on Patreon, and we would greatly appreciate that.
So if you're not already a patron, go check us out. If you are, thank you so much. Appreciate the support.
For sure. And also, if you're not opposed to a lot of scrolling, there's a lot of previous rewards that you can find over there and download. They just might require a little scrolling.
It's a way to be able to see the stuff that we do over there, and we've created quite a lot of content. I mean, we're closing in on 9 years of Nerdarchy at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, we're in year 8. We started in 2014. So we've been doing this for quite some time. So do we have any other business before we head on out?
I mean, that's what I've got on my agenda. I know that if you're looking to watch some crazy antics of myself and the previously mentioned Carlos and Fragginator, you can come on back Friday night, 8 o'clock, for some more of the untraditionally arcane and find out what's happened with the things in the junkyard and why they've gone ahead and pulled out their familiars. We might just have a familiar problem to deal with.
That's funny. And then, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow night for Those Bastards, I believe, session 4. And we left off on quite the cliffhanger, or at least maybe not a cliffhanger, but a new NPC was introduced, and we were all kind of like, "What the?" When that character showed up. So we'll be doing that, and then Friday at noon, I'll be back here with Never Ending. They're talking about D&D NPCs and the Kickstarter they have going on. There is lots of cool stuff going on. So come on back to the channel, and we'll also have another video probably going up tomorrow as well. So until
And if
next
you
time,
stay nerdy.
stay nerdy.